Salt of the Earth Farm Stories.
And I said, if you can't allocate 14 minutes and 23 seconds to yourself, go and then walk into your bathroom and have a good hard look at yourself in the mirror, because you're the most important person.
We're back with Warren Davies for Part B. In this episode, we talk about the grieving process after disaster and the reality that for many rural communities, the next disaster is often sitting somewhere in the back of people's minds. We talk resilience, capacity, adverse circumstances, and we also check in on Warren himself. There's some really practical advice in this episode too. Warren says he'll challenge anyone who can't find just 1% of their day to help themselves. And we also talk about ways we can better look out for the people around us. This one's about building capacity and building hope. Here's Part B with Warren Davies.
Everyone's situation's a little bit different, and so recovery is not just because everything looks a little bit normal, but it still doesn't. You can rest assured that. But just to make people aware that, just because the road's open again doesn't mean it's over. This is a long-term thing, and these communities then need supporting longer term, and so it's not a short-term thing. And I think making people aware in the cities that this is what's happening and how multiple disasters across the wide expanse of Australia can impact then their food security, or the security of of the nation. Basically, they've got to be aware of that. But because it's not in the news cycle, or there's something else going on more interesting overseas, this is still happening just up the road from you. And you need to be aware of this, because these people are struggling. They'll need support longer term. By that stage, by the time they're at the end of their, getting some sort of way down the path of recovery, the next disaster will have already hit. And that's a reality of living in rural Australia these days.
Is there one conversation from the road that stayed with you lately?
There's a number of them, but particularly sitting with that lady that first day after really tragic circumstances. And I don't know, what stuck with me was just her, I don't know, and I'll use that word, but it's not the right word, but her resilience, but her capacity to be able to hold her shit together, basically, in the face of adverse circumstances, really just blew me away. But knowing that was part of the process, and eventually there'll be somewhere down the track where that'll all fall apart, because that's just the progression of these things. But that really stuck with me. I'm thinking, well, there's not too many other problems in the world. Like, if you need to, I suppose then it makes you reflect on yourself and how you handle situations, and you need to make sure that you're a bit calmer or a bit here or there when you're doing it, after watching her, like she's modelled behaviour that you just go, I don't know where you got that from. Like, that's just amazing. And that's multiple times when you're walking up and you're seeing people standing just staring at a pile of mangled iron, and you're thinking, geez, I don't know what's going through your head, and then what can I do? And there's not much I can do except, as I said, hold space and have that conversation.
But that lady you're talking about, she's someone we've got to keep checking on, isn't she?
Yeah, definitely. And this is where, I now have a phone full of phone numbers and text messages get fired out at random times during the day, just checking in on people that I've worked with back in 2018 in droughts in southern Queensland.
That would go a mile if they get a message from you.
But you just all of a sudden, or one lady the other day is, why'd you check in on me? I said, because, or, you've been, she was one of the ladies that sort of stood up one of these community hubs. And I said, because you just popped into my head and I thought I'd reach out and just say g'day. How you going? Because I know you've taken on a lot, and you're also dealing with your own stuff at the same time.
Which brings me to this. I was speaking to one of our listeners during the week. He's a big fan of yours, mate. He firstly said to ask you, how are you going?
How am I going?
It's about time we asked you, mate.
It's very interesting because I've received 3 of those text messages just today from people. How are you going? And I'm going okay. Look, I'll be totally honest with most people, and my wife will definitely tell you that this is the case. It's been a rough journey over the last 15 or 16 weeks. I've taken on a lot, but that's okay because that's what I do. And I've been really, really lucky. I've got a friend who's in her own private practice down in Bacchus Marsh, Bonnie, who we worked together a fair bit during the floods in Rochester. Bonnie's been a great support, as in I can debrief with her. And I've also been lucky because of the support on the ground. I was identified as one of those key supporters. So through the Australian Psychologists Society, they also allocated in that initial 6 or 7 or 8 week period a psychologist that I could check in with. So I was able to download, but there has been, I suppose that then one of the things that becomes frustrating, because how can I help, how can you help these people more, or how can you help them be seen? But then realising that it is a process, and that's one of the things that you've got to reiterate to people that are dealing, particularly in a disaster, is that there's a process, and it is, and probably break the news to them. It is probably at least a 2-year process where some people have got real expectations that we'll be back in a house by Christmas. Like, it's not going to happen. Just knowing from previous, some people will be able to achieve that. But just knowing the processes and the hurdles and the hiccups and the blocks that get put in front of you, that this is not achievable and it could be a longer term thing. So prepare yourself for that. And that's sometimes the psychological thing, barrier, like these people then, I'm not prepared for that. So Laura, how can we build capacity so that's where, not just before crisis, but during crisis, how can we build that capacity so you come out the other end and you're still okay?
But we don't want you to feel isolated, mate. There's lots of people thinking of you. This particular listener said there's not a day goes by that he doesn't think of you. And he said to me in the same message that he has gone back and listened to our episode with you last year many, many times.
Yeah.
And it's got him through some tough days. Thank you.
No, I appreciate. I appreciate, and as I said, I'm really humble, and that's just something that I just can't get my head around because I'm just me, and it's just you probably get me a bit emotional here, mate. I'm trying not to be.
You're allowed to be, mate.
Yeah, I know, but it's just something that I do, and it is a passion, and it's born out of that dark, scary place that I got to, and I don't want anyone else to have to endure that. And I know that's just like, that's a fanciful goal. I understand that. But like, if I can just help someone, and it's really hard to articulate why it drives me so much, but it just does. And I think it's just knowing that people like that are out there, and I do know they're out there.
But you need to be reminded of that sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you do, but it's not why you do it. And I think once you've done it long enough, anyway, you don't need, gratification or recognition or any of that, because you just know. I know that doesn't matter what room I speak in, whether there's 10 people or 1,000 people in that room, there's going to be at least one person who's going to take something away. And if not, they'll be able to take something away to help someone that they love. And I just know that. And that's not being big-headed or anything. That's just, I know, and if there's a room that's not, well, then that's a very lucky room. So there's always that. So, but I'm really humble about what I do, but I know there's those people out there. I know that they're there, and that's why I keep doing what I do. Not very often I get many likes, and not that you do it for likes, but likes or comments or that, or on anything I put out on Facebook or on my socials. But then a lady stops me in the main street of at the cafe yesterday and just wanted to give me a hug and thank me. So I'll keep writing as long as I need to and putting stuff out there if it's going to help people. And I've heard that time and time again, because I've really made an effort to articulate my stuff into words during this disaster. Even though I'm a bloody professional speaker, mate, sitting in front of a video camera and trying to do something to camera is the scariest shit. And I'm getting encouraged to do more of that, so I write it instead. And people go, it's like you're sitting at my kitchen table and you've read my brain. Whatever you've written tonight was just hit the spot, and I'm going, well, I don't know. It's just because what I'm seeing, trying to relate what I'm seeing and hearing during a day and writing it down and putting it into something that will give some people some hope or inspiration or whatever that is. So, but I thank anyone that reaches out. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I did overnights on the ABC with Trevor Chappell the other week, and a bloke rang from, I don't know where he was, but some random place, and he's listening to overnight radio at 3 o'clock in the morning. So one, mate, you got to go and get your sleep pattern under control, but two, that he knew who I was, and I'm thinking, geez, it's like, yeah, bit scary. But I'm really lucky because I've got that grounding force, which is my wife and my 5 kids.
Yeah.
They don't let me get too ahead of myself, so it's all good.
After we published our episode last year with you, I had lots of different messages, and there's one thing that stuck with me, mate, and there was a phone call from a fellow who was really struggling. He was a mess, and he got talking on the phone for half an hour to an hour, and I was thinking, that's this one thing that Warren would have wanted, this one impact he would have wanted to have on one person.
Yeah.
And I know that you did. You made a huge difference to this fella, and still now.
But that goes back to those key tools in your toolbox: connection and communication. So it's achieved that because he doesn't have to necessarily talk to me, but he's talked to you, and he's made connection, he's communicated, and I can tell you, pretty much, he would have felt better after that conversation. And that's what I know. See, and I don't know if that's what I lacked during when I was, and I probably was, and that was mostly brought on by myself, is having that lack of connection or communicating how I was feeling. So for someone that's a big step. And so that's what drives me. Because if you can, in a 45-minute keynote, and you can build enough rapport with someone that they're really, or a podcast, and they're willing to reach out to someone, well, then you've achieved your goal.
So do you think more people are coming out about mental health now?
That's another ripper question, mate. You've really put together some powerful ones today. It's like statistics tell us no.
Really?
Well, the suicide rate hasn't changed. Hospitalisations from self-harm, they go up. But we do talk about it a lot more, and we're a lot freer about talking about it. It's probably the age group that we find ourselves in, maybe a little bit younger than us and older than us, that is still that, there's still that bit of stigma. A lot of young people are a lot more willing to talk about their mental health, which is a really good thing. But that doesn't mean when shit really hits the fan that they do still talk. Like, they're happy to talk about their feelings and all that, but there's still those statistics still tell us that when it comes to crunch time, they're not reaching out or asking for help. And I know there's all different reasons why someone might take their life as well. But at the same time, it's telling us that there's still a lot of work to be done. But we've come a long way, like definitely come a long way, for people to reach out or even listen to a podcast around mental health and wellbeing. Well, that's testament that we've come a long way, and be prepared to sit there and be challenged and be made vulnerable and all those sorts of things. So we've come a long way. We've still got a long way to go though.
We touched on it before, but how important is purpose during recovery?
The whole purpose is everything. So that's, without my clear mission and purpose, I'd still be standing at the gate of my farm thinking, who am I?
It still rocks me, that story.
Yeah, but who am I? What am I? And I'm my dad, and I'm a husband, and I'm son and brother, all those things. But who am I if I didn't have purpose and a mission to be on? So purpose is and that was one of the things. So, and this is, you probably just open up a can of worms. So one of the communities that were heavily impacted, they had a lot of elderly farmers. They're either living in a caravan or out of a container, or they still had their houses, but they were stepping outside looking and just going, what do I do today? So we tried to then get the farmers together, so work on group projects. So we're going to Frank's today, and let's work on his job together, not by ourselves, together. And then tomorrow we'll go to Bill's. And we tried to get them together because there was some blokes that were reasonably, put it bluntly, they were on a watch list. Like, they were really struggling. They didn't know how they were going to move forward. So trying to bring those people together and give them purpose. So they weren't only just achieving their own stuff, they were achieving stuff for other people as well. So, you know, they were giving back. So all these fluffy feel-good stuff, and was making them feel better. So didn't change their circumstance, but changed their mood. So purpose is so important. Once you've lost your purpose, I think you're in a world of hurt. So trying to find what that is, and even if that's just simple stuff, you know, what's your purpose? I think I wrote a post last night or the day before, you know, just ringing up and checking in with someone gives you purpose, right? I write down 5 names today. I'm going to ring 5 people today and just check in and see. It gives you purpose. Like, you might be still struggling yourself, but at least it gives you purpose for that day. If you can't find anything else, find something that's going to do something for that day. You know, it's really important. And they're the scary things, like with that, you know, tagging that then with resilience is sometimes gets a little bit confused, because, all right, my purpose is I've got to get in and get my fences done, and you go flat stick. The most important asset on your farm or in your business or in your family is you. And you're worried about all this other stuff and you're not worried about you. So it's really important. You've got to focus on yourself and your own well-being, and then, you know, so don't get resilience and purpose and all that confused, and just keep pushing and pushing until you hit a brick wall. There are all these little intricate tools you've got to put in place, and one of them's looking after you, checking in with yourself, making sure you're doing some stuff. And something that I keep challenging people with, because most people go, I'm too busy, can't do that. I said, well, you've got to have a non-negotiable in your day. What is it? What's something that you just do for yourself every day? Haven't got time. I said, all right, let's break it down. We'll start small. Make me a promise. You'll start small tomorrow. Allocate 1% of your day. What's that? 14 minutes and 23 seconds. And I said, if you can't allocate 14 minutes and 23 seconds to yourself, then walk into your bathroom and have a good hard look at yourself in the mirror, because you're the most important person, and you've got to be able to allocate some time to yourself for your own mental health and well-being, not for anyone else. Just do that for yourself. And then from there, then start building. And then all of a sudden, what you're doing is you're creating a habit and something in your day that's routine. And then you can build on it, and all of a sudden then that non-negotiable is then an hour long in your day. And whether that's broken up into 3 20-minute sections or whatever that is, but you've got to be able to focus some time on yourself, because we get that busy now. To be able to fulfill anything in your life, you've got to be able to look after yourself first and foremost.
So 14 minutes and 23 seconds is only 1% of your day.
Yeah.
Wow. What are the warning signs someone's capacity tank is empty?
Yeah, well, you can see that, like, well, obviously some of those things, just like your mental health, start to appear: anger, frustration, you know, tiredness, not sleeping, loss of motivation, loss of purpose, all those things, loss of connection, loss of communication, all those things, you know, not reaching out, getting support, they all add up. You know, they might only be just little parts, but you chuck them all in together and it becomes a big problem. So, you know, there's all those little things and that's when it's really hard. So when someone says, well, what do we look out for? And you go, well, how long's the piece of string? Because they're all big things. And, you know, around mental health and wellbeing, I talk about, you know, the big signs sometimes are, you know, and this is not on every occasion, but are always easy to see. Someone's angry or they're frustrated or they're, you know, behaviour is different, but it's the little things that we've got to look out for. They don't turn up to footy training on a Tuesday night, or they haven't come to that meeting where they're normally sitting up the front and they're the most vocal person, or, you know, they've sat there and they've, you know, just all these little things we've got to pick up on. There are the signs that people are just running out of capacity to be able to move forward to the next step, because they've completely depleted. So we've got to be able to build those toolboxes back up.
Yeah,
and it is a process, and for me, it's a long. When I look back, some of it's been a really long process, but you just got to keep aiming each day to try and, well, what can I do to try and navigate tomorrow better than I did today?
Have you seen communities recovering really well?
Yep. So I think the communities that recover really well are those ones that, or we use that word community-led recovery, but it's really community-enabled recovery. If I use the Ruffy model, where, they clearly work out what they want, and how they're going to recover. And regardless of the outside influences, this is how we want to recover
As a community.
And then that flows back to individuals as well through. But I think having some of these tools, so well connected, communities are always, going to recover better. That doesn't mean that they don't fracture when stress hits, but well-connected communities. And I go back to, say, the floods back in 2022 in Rochester. If you were connected to the footy club, that was a big head start in your recovery, because that was your community. You were already hooked in. People had each other's back. If you're on the fringe of the footy club or whatever, or you've never been involved, when they tried to invite you in, so they were offering free memberships and that, just to get everyone together. So communities that have got capacity already in their toolbox always recover a lot more quicker. But that doesn't mean that they don't have their ups and downs as well and face their challenges. But so I think that's why it's important. Why I sat down back in December is building that capacity before crisis. So when crisis does hit, you've got, that toolbox, or in the community sense, you've got that trailer parked in a shed somewhere that you can just pull out and unfold, and there it is with all the tools that you need. It's about building capacity before crisis is the I suppose the key. But obviously with what's happened, there's also those opportunities during and after to build those tools and strategies as well. So, communities that are well connected, they communicate, they've got, clear goals, they're led by, not just a handful of people, but the whole community gets involved. They're the ones that really thrive, I think. But having said that, it's, every community then faces its challenges in their recovery.
And mate, if someone's listening to this and they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, what's one small thing they could do perhaps this week or even today?
Well, one of the things that I do is I talk about having, knowing your positive triggers, your negative triggers, your stresses and your challenges. You've got to identify them. You can't just say, well, I'm really stressed. Well, what are you really stressed about? What's your challenges? We have them articulated somehow, like whether it's on your phone or you've got a list, or journal them, or, one of the things I was thinking about talking about facing the camera is maybe journaling some of what I do and face the camera. So, and then making, being able to share that with people. So however you do that, kind of get an idea of your stresses, your challenges, your negative triggers and your positive triggers. But that's where your positive triggers list comes really important. So what are the things that light you up that you can do? So if you're having a really bad day, you're totally overwhelmed, what are some of the things that you can do that light you up, that could change your mood, like at a click of a finger, or might not be a click of a finger, but generally. And maybe that's going for a walk, or listening to a song, or listening to some comedy, or playing with the grandkids, or taking your dog for a walk, whatever it is. Just know what those things are so you can implement one of those tools to be able to change your day. And there's obviously breathing and all that sort of stuff, and sit quietly, and it takes some time. One of the things is just walk away. Take some time. If something's really, you keep hitting your head against a brick wall, or step back, walk around, take a few deep breaths, and when you come back to that brick wall, you might be able to walk straight through it too. It's just, but while you're there belting your head against it, it's just continually. So step away, take a new perspective on it, and then have a go again. So just simple little strategies like that are really important, in being able to reframe your day if you're having a crap day. Now, having said that, I've got to practice some of the stuff that I preach too, because some days become very overwhelming for me. And I've got better over the years of identifying that and then being able to do that. But when things are really stressful, and it is hard, and that's the thing why we've got to continually practice all this stuff, because it's not easy. It's not easy to have conversations around how you're feeling, be vulnerable with people that you might not know, put it all out there on the table. It's not easy. It's bloody hard. But we've got to keep practicing, and then keep more practice you get, the better you get at it. And being able to have conversations, or identifying if you're struggling, what tools can I implement, and just keep practicing. And with practice, you get better. After a while, those overwhelming situations kind of dissipate a little bit because you've got some stuff in place. And it's really hard because when you talk about that, it sounds like you're belittling someone who's really struggling. And I know what that's like, but it's just little simple things, whether that's picking up the phone, having a talk, or just walking outside and walking down the street and surround yourself with some people. Just all little things. They're just little things that could change.
That walking away bit, I think, is pretty powerful because sometimes you don't know what's niggling at you deep down. Yeah. And it just step away, have a look back. Yeah. And you go, oh, that's it. Now I can work on that. And it might be something that you can't talk to anyone about. Yeah. It might be someone's confided in you about something and you're bottling this up. But if you can go for a walk, do something a little bit different, have some purpose, then come back and think about it and go, right, what do we need to do?
It's like in my Unbreakable wheel of wellbeing, there's one of the spokes is your environment. And it's like you might be sitting somewhere like, I know when I'm not on the road, I'm in my home office, and you can get really bogged down. And then all of a sudden, instead of smashing out emails, you're going from one screen to the other and nothing's getting done. Well, picking yourself up and maybe folding the laptop up and going sitting in the park or out in the sun or something, all of a sudden then you realise in 10 minutes you've smashed out, 10 emails because you've just changed your environment, given you a different outlet, you've got a bit of sun on your face or whatever. It's just simple little things that we need to just gain a new perspective. You can't just keep sitting there going bang, 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 bang and expect something different. You've got to be able to implement something, and stepping back, breathing, taking some time away, go and make yourself a cup of tea, whatever it is, and just then go back and go, righto, I'll take a fresh look at this and go again.
Perhaps they could listen to a podcast.
Maybe there's a couple of good ones going around, I think.
Well, mate, I've recently heard a really good podcast with you on it. That was with The Life of Brian Taylor and Harrison Taylor. Awesome, mate. Well done. How was that?
No, it was pretty surreal because as a kid growing up in Melbourne, like I'm a Richmond supporter, and, it was, having a chat with BT was pretty surreal. It was. I hate all these things in my life because you look back and go, geez, that was big. But when you're in it, you just got to do it. Now I look back and I think, geez, that was pretty cool. That's, and you don't want to big note yourself, but that's pretty cool. Like sit there and talk with BT. And, I know I had blokes message me after that, didn't know that part of my story, or didn't know I played footy there or whatever. And you go, and just a different audience heard what I would talk about. But that was pretty cool. Like it was a bit of a surreal experience. I'm a bit of a fanboy. So, yeah.
No, that was a great chat. And Harrison, asked some really good questions as well.
Yeah, no, he's pretty good. Harrison's good at what he does. And he did ask some good questions. And obviously there has been some good feedback from that. So, which is, and that's probably just tapping into a different audience as well. So it's been pretty cool.
Well, I've got some good questions for you now, mate. It's the off-the-wall questions.
Yeah,
Are you ready?
Yeah, you better fire them at me.
What's the strangest thing you've eaten on the road lately?
Strangest thing?
Or best thing?
The best thing? The other day I just had a hankering for a Chico roll, so that was pretty fulfilling. It's a bit of a trap when you're driving around in a car with a boot full of shortbread as well. That's not good, mate.
Well, tell me about my gift here, mate. I love it. We've got a box of shortbread.
Yeah, so the shortbread, and as I said, it is dangerous because especially on a long trip, you need a bit of sugar, and all of a sudden
I'm driving back to Wodonga.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sure they'll be gone by the time you get to Wodonga, mate. Bill Quayle, he owns the Yarra Valley Shortbread Company, also owns Byron Bay Cookies and a number of other companies that are all, they do pasta and all sorts of things. Anyway, he come up to me after an event and said, look, I love what you do. I haven't got money, but I've got a lot of shortbread. And I'd love to be able to give you some. And I then turned that I had a really good think about it and thought, this is something that's never happened to me before. No one's ever offered me stuff like this. And I think I've got to turn this into something. So I turned his generosity into a project, which is my Unbreakable conversation project, and use these shortbreads as an icebreaker to conversation. If you haven't caught up, I give them as a gift to people at my talks or when I'm driving up driveways. If you haven't caught up with someone, or you need to have a chat with someone, or if you just want to catch up and you need a reason, there it is. Just drive up the driveway and say, I've got the shortbread, put the kettle on and let's have a cuppa.
Fantastic.
So it's pretty cool.
And that's better than, walking in with perhaps a stubby holder or a pen or something like that.
Yeah.
It gives you purpose then to sit down, have a yarn.
Exactly. Or if they don't want to sit down, they can take it to their neighbour or whoever and then have a cuppa and a chat.
You a coffee drinker?
I have coffee or tea. So,
what country town makes the best coffee?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I can't go to a country town, but it is kind of a country town. So in Darwin, there's a coffee shop in Parap called It's called Laneway. It's called Laneway, the Laneway Cafe, and it's one of the busiest cafes in Darwin. Everyone goes there for brekkie. They make a really good coffee there.
Oh, I've got fond memories of shenanigans in Mitchell Street.
I know, different sort of good.
I did have a good chat.
Yeah, Dave, I'm sure you would have had a good time at shenanigans. I actually took my grandson to Darwin to watch the grand final because my son plays footy up in Darwin and lives up there. We took my grandson up there, and his dad used to. So this is my youngest son. My oldest son used to live in Darwin as well and frequent shenanigans, and so I took a picture of my grandson out the front just for good old time's sake.
What's your ultimate road trip snack? Shortbread.
Shortbread is obviously, I better say that, Bill. Hopefully you're listening. Shortbread is
that'll do.
Yeah.
What song gets the most airplay in the car?
Depends on my day. So
on your mood?
It depends on my mood. So that can change anything from Willie Nelson to Bushwhackers to Foo Fighters to a little bit at the moment. I'm a bit obsessed with the Cat Empire. I've seen them up at Wodonga, but I've seen them a couple of times. So yeah, a bit of Cat Empire, but a lot of podcasts as well. Run out. I often message Harrison or Trent Cotchin or these people and say,
Salt of the Earth.
Or Salt of the Earth. You need to a bit more content because I do a lot of Ks, so I chew through them. So, but it just depends where I am and what I'm doing, and if it's a long trip, like I went to Dubbo last Saturday, so 15 hours of driving, you chew through a bit of music and podcasts. So some random stuff starts getting played then, which is good because I love music. Got a very eclectic taste of music, so I can listen to anything.
Like it. What's the funniest thing that's happened while travelling lately?
Funniest thing? The funniest thing is probably just taking the wrong turn and realise you're heading in the wrong direction. That's pretty awesome when you probably really can't afford to lose that 20 minutes of time and you realise you're heading down the wrong road. It's a big fear of mine as well, like you're heading to a speaking gig and you're always cutting it fine and then you keep checking maps to make sure that you're heading in the right direction.
So you are using Google Maps, not farmer instinct?
Depends. A lot of roads I know, I've travelled a fair bit over the last 10 years, so kind of know my way to most places and I've got a good sense of direction, so I generally know I'm heading in the right direction.
Well, if you could magically fix one thing in rural Australia right now, what would it be?
Jeez. I suppose this depends what state you're driving in. But in Victoria, it's obviously the potholes. Sorry about that, but I just had to put that in. But that's I think most people would say that's a loaded question, mate. That's
capacity?
Look, just giving people more hope to know that there is a future. Like there's a lot of, kids my kids' age, the uncertainty of not knowing that they'll ever own a house and stuff like that. I think so building capacity and hope within our nation that there is a future. That uncertainty really plays a big part, I think, at the moment for everybody, regardless of age.
That was a real interesting point there before, uncertainty. What's one thing rural Australians are generally world-class at?
World-class hospitality, mate, making you feel welcome. I rock into a town and I feel like I've lived there for forever. People make you feel welcome. Everyone's, interested in what you do or where you come from and why you're there if they don't already know. they haven't read the flyer or what the event they're at. They're always interested. And then after you've done your talk, they're always even a bit more interested because they've learned a bit more about you. So they ask even more questions. But yeah, hospitalities, especially those CWA ladies, they do a great job.
Well, mate, thank you once again. You're doing incredible work.
Pleasure, mate.
As I said before, I know from our last conversation we had how much of a difference you're making in people's lives. As I said, I've personally had phone calls, messages, and seen the impact you've had. It's not an easy space you work in, but the way you show up for rural communities, quietly, honestly, and consistently, it really matters. Thanks for the kilometres, the conversations had, and the support you continue to give so many people around Australia.
Oh, mate, that's thank you. I really appreciate those kind words, and it's been great having a chat again, mate. This is good. It's the first time I've ever been on a podcast twice, so this is pretty cool. So thanks, mate. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome back here anytime.
Good on you.
Well, that was part B with Warren Davies, the Unbreakable farmer. I really appreciate Warren taking the time to share his insights, experience, and encouragement with us once again. If you've got something from this conversation, feel free to share it with someone else who might need it too. And again, if this episode raises anything for you personally, please reach out for support. Lifeline is available on 13 11 14. Thanks for listening, and please follow us on your podcast app and social media.